support too, and they sent me the right link.
Hi, Regina.
Hi.
Well,
McNally, did you hear that? That somehow people are getting the wrong links.
Yes, I heard that. I'll be sure to go into the back end and see what I can
Thank you
fix.
so much.
Thanks for letting
thank
me know.
you.
Yeah, all that stuff is like, yeah, it's like Chinese to me, and I don't speak Chinese.
Rabbi Diane?
But
Yeah.
you speak Greek, eh?
No, just the Greek that's embedded in the Talmud. That's about it.
It's Nancy. And I just want to thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful poem last night. I wondered if it was you delivered it like it was yours, but I don't know if it was. Yes?
Yeah, I wrote it I think yesterday, last 2 days.
What a joy.
He's the rabbi.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Were you on last night, Jay?
No, will there be a recording? I haven't been able to find the recording area either, so.
The recording, you get it in Romemu now every week.
Oh, okay. I'll look for that then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can also find it on Facebook, and if you need help, I'm happy to. With my limited technology.
No, I thought I wanted to circulate last week's open book. I thought that was so amazing. So there's someone I wanted to share it with.
Yeah, there are ways that you can get, write to support, and they'll send you all the links that you want, okay?
Thank you. I will do that.
Okay. Hi, Roberta.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Good morning. Happy 2022. Wow.
Well, yeah, a couple of us went into Central Park last night and watched the fireworks. It was very brave and amazing. It was so beautiful.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. Why brave?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, and you don't go into the parks at night.
Right, that's true. That's true. Except on nights like New Year's, exactly. All right, so would someone like to, Roberta, I'm going to call on you to do the blessing again. You did it so beautifully last week, and I wanted to learn it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So, we'll just ask McKaylee to share the slide. But tell us exactly the words before you, because it's not the words of this blessing.
Okay, so it's Gal Einai ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha.
Beautiful.
And my understanding of the meaning, and I learned that from Natan Margolit, who I think is a colleague of your Chavrusa, yeah?
Yeah, I also know him. He's an old.
Okay. Open my eyes so that I may behold the wonders of your Torah.
Yeah. But since gal is like a wave, but also I think it means to roll. So that's an interesting. Does it mean open as well? That's an interesting verb there. I'm not sure.
Wow. Okay. So you want me to chant it?
Yeah.
Galena ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. Galena ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. Galena ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. Galena ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. That was our little opening nigun, and we're going to end again today with a poem or a piece, and today it's going to be by Jessica, so we're looking forward to that. Jessica Lewak at the end of the session. And I wanted to invite people, I've been noticing that, and it's been wonderful, it's been incredible, but we're hearing like the same people speak every week. So I'm wondering if those people, at least for the first half, could sort of stand back and see if new voices will emerge. Not to put anyone on the spot, but let's just see what happens. Okay. So I know it's hard. But let's try it. If you really have something to say, put it in the chat, which I may or may not see, as you know. But let's just mix it up. Okay, so today, let's see, do you all have the source sheet? Yeah, it seems, if Michaela, if you can put it in again, for people who just came in, and I will see if I can share my screen. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay, here we go. So I want to explore today the twin themes of knowing and blocking. And God willing, you will see what I mean. And this is such a rich parsha. I mean, the whole Exodus narrative is just incredible. And we're going to start not at the beginning of the parsha, but in Exodus 6. And I guess I'll read this passage and then I'll share the reading with somebody else when I get a little tired. So here, God is telling Moshe what God is going to do. Okay, God is going to do in terms of freeing the Israelites, but also making God's self known. Okay, so let's just dive into that. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe Atah. So God said to Moses, and this is the Yud He Vav He name of God, which we're going to get into that whole idea of what Yud He Vav He, that name of God, is doing in the Exodus narrative. Atah, now, Tir'eh asher e'aseh lit Pharaoh. You will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Ki v'yad chazaka yishalchem u'v'yad chazaka yigarshem me'artzo. He shall let them go because of a greater might. Actually, it doesn't say greater in the Hebrew. It says, with a mighty hand, I will send them forth. And with a mighty hand, he shall drive them from this land. Right? Yigarshem me'artzo. He will drive out the Israelites from his land. V'yidaber Elohim el Moshe. So again, now it says Elohim spoke to Moshe. Vayomer elav, Ani Adonai, and he said to him, I am God, using Yud He Vav He. Ve'era el Avraham el Yitzchak el Yaakov ve'el Shaddai u'shmi Adonai lo nadati lahem. And I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. I don't exactly know how to translate this, but in the aspect of El Shaddai. So God is saying basically that the name of God that God revealed to the forefathers is El Shaddai. And the name El Shaddai is interesting because it's the God of Shaddai. And what's Shaddai? Shaddai seems to be related to fertility and breasts, as in Shaddayim. Ushemi Adonai, and the name of Adonai, Yud He Vav He, Lo Nadati Lahem. I did not make known to them.
Hi, sorry to interrupt, Rabbi Diane. We
Yeah.
actually can't see the text. We only see the top of your screen.
Oh, really? Huh.
So whatever
So glad
is...
you interrupted me. Is that better or no?
No, I would recommend maybe re-sharing the
Yeah,
page.
I'll
It's
talk
just
to
we
her.
don't scroll with
Okay.
you.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, thank you. All right, well, hold on one second. Let me see if I can fix whatever's going on here. Let's see. This is quite strange. Now, I don't have to read all that again, do I? I hope not. Okay, let's try this again. How's that? Good, bad?
It hasn't loaded for us yet. It just says you have started screen sharing, but we don't see anything.
Okay. technical difficulties. Still not? It says you are screen sharing.
No, we aren't able to see anything. It's just a black screen.
That's not good. Because I'm doing the same thing I always do.
Would you like me to try sharing instead?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Here, I'll stop my share. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. All right, so I read the first 3 verses. I'm on 4. Go down a little bit. I mean, go up a little bit. That's what I meant. Yeah, okay. Okay. Vigam hakimoti et briti itam latet lahem et eretz Canaan et eretz megurehem asher garuba. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they lived as sojourners. Vigam ani, okay, so that was the past, and now we're going to the present. Vigam ani shamati et naakat b'nei Yisrael asher mitzrayim ma'avidim otam ve'eskor et briti. I have now heard the moaning of the Israelites because the Egyptians are holding them in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Yeah, people should be getting the link in the chat, and which should be a PDF. Lachen, sorry, okay. Lachen, emor livnei. Can you make it a little bigger, Michaela? It's hard for me to see the vowels. Thank you. Lachen, emor livnei Yisrael, ani Adonai, v'hotzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, v'hitzalti etchem me'avodotam, v'ga'alti etchem bizroa netuyah, uvishvatim gidolim. So say therefore to the Israelites, I am the Lord. I will free you from the labors of the Egyptians and deliver you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and through extraordinary chastisements. V'lakachti lechem li la'am, v'hayiti lechem le'elohim, and I will take you for a nation, and I will be for you a God. V'yidatem ki ani Adonai Elohechem, and you will know that I am God, your God, or your Lord. And that comes up again and again, that through the Exodus, through liberation from slavery, the Israelites and also the Egyptians will know that God is God. That's like a crucial goal of this whole narrative. Hamotzi etchem mitachet sivlot Mitzrayim, the one who takes you out from the burdens of Egypt. Okay. Veheveti etchem el haaretz asher nasati et yadi latet ota la'Avraham, li'Yitzchak, u'li'Yaakov. I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you for a possession. V'natati ota lachem morasha. Ani Adonai. I'll give it to you for a possession. I, the Lord. Ani Adonai. Okay, great. All right, so we're going to do a few more texts. Go down, please. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the question. So the question is, the name of God, Yud He Vav He, is all over Genesis. So what's going on? Why is God saying that God did not reveal the name of Yud He Vav He to the forefathers? So different commentators try to square this. So what Rashi does is say, what's written here is nodati instead of hodati. It is not written here lo hodati, I did not make known to them, but lo nodati was, sorry, they didn't know me. I was not known unto them. In other words, I may have made myself known, but I was not known unto them. Somehow they didn't get it. The connection didn't happen. Lo nikarti lahem b'midat amitut sheli. I was not recognized by them in my attribute of keeping faith, or my true attribute. She'aleha nikra shemi Adonai, by reason of which my name is called Adonai, or Yud He Vav He. Ne'eman la'amet dvari. I am faithful to keep or fulfill my words. Shaharei hivtachtim v'lo kiyamti. So back then in Genesis, I promised, but I didn't fulfill. So if you think about what happened in Genesis, is that God appeared to Abraham and said, my children are going to be slaves for 400 years, and then I will release them and free them. But that didn't happen till now. So now God is the promise keeper. Now God is the one who fulfills promises. Okay, let's go down and see what Ramban does. Nachmanides. Okay, so this goes a step further than Rashi. The matter of this verse is that he, I put it in brackets, God, appeared to the patriarchs with this name, through which God conducts the system of the heavens, doing with them great miracles, in which the way of the world is not negated. In other words, God intervenes, but it intervenes in such a way that it looks like the nature of the world, even though God is doing it. In famine, God redeems them from death, and in war from sword. And God gave them wealth and honor and every good thing. But with my name of Yud He Vav He, by which all being was created, I did not yet make myself known to create new things in changing the outcomes. Therefore, tell the Israelites that I am Havaya, or Yud He Vav He, and tell them once again the great name by which I do miracles. So let's go down a little bit. So to me, that connected to Soren Kierkegaard. I forget which book this is. This is either Fear and Trembling. Sorry, I forgot the name of the other book, but someone will know. Inasmuch as for God all things are possible, it may be said that this is what God is, one for whom all things are possible. God is that all things are possible, and that all things are possible is the existence of God. So now we're in the realm of the divine identity of the one who creates miracles, the one who alters the nature of the world, right? So when a system seems absolutely stuck, either in oneself or in the world, God is the one who can alter that system. Okay, so now I'm going to open up for comments. Thank you so much, McKaylee. And again, I'm going to invite people who don't usually speak in this room. Maybe you speak sometimes, but not every time. So, and sort of, we're going to open up the first half of the session at least to people who may not have had an opportunity to speak in the open book. Or not speak frequently. Aha, Nancy.
I love this concept of going from the covenant to the promise keeper.
Yeah.
And that certainly has never occurred to me. And it brings up something for me, just in the way that we relate to and pray. They're very different things. The covenant is, out there keeping the world, but the promise keeper can come down for us personally. And to make that transition, we have to go through our Mitzrayim. Although that's the very time where we may lose our faith and our trust and our understanding. When we need it the most is the very time when we're challenged and sometimes cannot reestablish. And I think the promise keeping part of it, if we could really open up to that trust more deeply, would open up a path to a much deeper relationship with God.
Nancy, that was so beautiful. I wonder if you could say another word about how you might apply it to our times. And again, I'm inviting Beth. I'm going to hold off on calling on you because I'm inviting people who don't usually speak in open book for
Sure.
at least the first half of the session. I wonder if you could say just a couple more words about how you might apply that to these times, if you want to make that connection.
Yeah, I think this very time where we are challenged. We've been through Mitzrayim. We thought we were coming to the, we were very tested. We saw the leaders help us come through, but we're not really on the other side. And we have to, and we don't even know what that other side might be, but our trust is really challenged in just about every realm of our lives in a very, very fundamental way. And for me, it has been very personally challenging to maintain that prayer, even though I know that it's when I need it the most.
Yeah.
And I feel a rededication coming forward to really deepen that trust now, because we have a long way to go in every realm.
Beautiful, Nancy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sometimes feels to me like we're watching a train wreck about to happen, and there's no way we can get in the way of that train. Like, what can we do to avert the direction of that train? What can we and it's interesting because I was talking to my chavruta this morning, and she's saying, but that's a confusion because it's not so much what we can do, but it's believing in the possibility of miracles. If I didn't misstate what you said, Sharon. So yeah, the belief here is there, to restate it without sort of necessarily stating it with belief in a particular God. Are we in a universe where redemption is baked into the fabric of existence? Is that the world we live in or can live in? Okay, so Marcy. Yeah, Marcy, great.
I think we live in a very impatient world. And
impatient, yes.
Yeah, and I think, here it is almost 2 years in and people are pulling their hair out again. But I don't know where patience meets faith. But the two have to kind of sit side by side just to endure, whether it's thousands of years ago or now. And still, it's better now than 2,000 years ago, and it's better now than it was 2 years ago. So we don't have all the answers, nor did they when the Torah was written.
It's interesting. I love your question, like, where does patience meet faith? So recently, as some of you know, also I want to address Devorah's comment in a second, but my daughter had COVID and she was not yet boosted, whatever, it's a complicated story. And then my husband was exposed to the same source of COVID that she was, but he was boosted and he only had a sniff. And then he was positive, but all he had was sniffles for a few days. And I know that's not true, but that's what happened to him. And I was like, oh my God, like, science really is miraculous. Look at you were boosted and you're fine. I was amazed. And she was like, fairly ill for a few days. So it is pretty miraculous. Yeah. And even though that was a miracle performed by scientists, I mean, there's no human act that doesn't depend on something else, right? Whether it's the faith that they could create something that will be saving or something in the world. I mean, it's all dependent. So Devorah Telushkin says here, Ein somchim al hanes. We can't depend on the miracle. So even if you do believe in a world which has redemption baked into the fabric of the universe, you can't just wait for that redemption. You kind of, like in the book of Exodus, like with the midwives and the mother of Pharaoh and Miriam and the daughter of Pharaoh, you got to start, right? You got to start sort of acting in the ways that you hope, I guess, God would act in. Like you've got to reflect that in your actions. So it's a very complicated relationship between what we do and what God does. Okay, so I want to open it up again to see if there are any more comments from people who don't generally speak. And if not, I will call on Beth, and then we're going to do some more texts. Hit it, Beth.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I got fixated on the different meanings of the word promise, at least in English. There's the idea that God will fulfill a promise previously made. A promise meaning I'm going to do something. Yes, we can go get ice cream tomorrow. That's a promise. But there's also a use of the word promise meaning potential. You know, those kids show a lot of promise.
Yeah.
This budding artist shows promise. And I like the idea that in a way, God's promise is that we will unfold with our own promise.
Yes, that's beautiful. And we actually have a text that addresses that we're going to get to. So let's hold on to that idea. And let's see, there was one more thing that I wanted to. Devora, if you're here, do you want to unpack a little bit what you're saying about miracles and not depending on miracles and tightrope walking? I don't know if you feel like speaking. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go back to the text. And yeah. Nehemiah, I'll get you on the other side as soon as we cover people who don't usually speak. Okay, so now I want to go from knowing and not knowing, to Moshe's experience of not having words. So this is from last Parsha. And I just want to, okay, so hold on a second. Go down. Okay, so God is basically trying to convince Moses, or just telling Moses, he's got a mission. This is what you got to do, right? And Moses keeps coming up with excuses. And one of the excuses, or one of the responses, I don't want to sort of denigrate his excuses as excuses, but one of his responses is just like, he just seems absolutely terrified. So if you look at verse 10, Vayomer Moshe el Adonai. So this is the whole scene at the burning bush. Bi Adonai, lo ish dvarim anochi, gam mitmol, gam mishulshom, gam me'az dabercha el avdecha, ki kevad pe ukvad lashon anochi. So Moshe says to the Lord, or to Yud Hey Vav Hey, please God, or please Lord, actually, I have never been a man of words, either in times past or now that you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. Let's see what God says. This is really interesting. Vayomer Adonai elav, mi sam pe la'adam, umi yasum ilem, o cheresh, o fikeach, o iver, o fikeach, o iver, halo anochi Adonai. And the Lord said to him, or God said to him, who gives human beings speech? Who makes them dumb or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? And here again, it's Yud Hey Vav Hey. Va'ata lech va'anochi eyeh im picha v'horeticha asher tidaber. Now go, and I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you what to say. Vayomer bi Adonai. Shlach na biyad tishlach. But he said, please, O Lord, make someone else your agent. So no matter what God says, even if God says, I will provide you with language, basically, and will tell you what to say, Moses says, I can't do it. Send somebody else. And we know what what God finally says is, okay, Aaron's going to go with you, your brother, and Aaron will be your mouthpiece, right? And then basically Moshe just has to go. Like the conversation is over. Okay, let's go down. Okay, so now here we are in our parsha, and Bnei Israel, the Israelites, are not listening. Asher Chaim, can I turn it over to you for reading?
I've been enjoying this enforced silence of sitting back and listening to the wisdom of others without feeling pressured to comment. But reading is always something I love. I'm going to use the PDF though, so I can make it bigger.
Great.
Are we on what verse are we on?
We're on Exodus 6, 9-13.
Vaydaber Moshe Cain el bnei Israel. Thus spoke Moses to the children of Israel. Velo sham'u el Moshe. But they did not attune to Moshe. Miqotzer ruach, because of shortness of ruach, spirit breath, ume avodah pasha, and because of burdensome work. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Yud Vav He spoke to Moshe, saying, Bo daber el Paro melech Misraim. Come and speak to Paro, ruler of Egypt, Vishalach et bnei Israel me'arso, and he will send forth the Israelites from his land. Vaydaber Moshe lifnei Adonai lemor, Moshe spoke in the presence of Yud Vav He, saying, Hein bnei Israel lo sham'u elai. But the Israelites didn't listen to me. V'ech yishma'eni Paro. Why should Paro listen to me? V'ani aral sfatayim. That is untranslatable. Since I am something of lips.
Well, why wouldn't you translate it as foreskin lips? Why is it untranslatable?
Okay, we'll go with that. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe v'el Aharon. Yud Vav He spoke to Moshe and to Aharon. Vaysavem el bnei Israel, and commanded them to, or vis-a-vis, the Israelites, v'el Paro melech Mitzrayim, and vis-a-vis Paro, king of Mitzrayim, l'hotzi et bnei Israel me'eretz Mitzrayim, to bring out the Israelites from the land of Mitzrayim.
Okay, so there's something about the fact that the Israelites did not listen to Moshe that intensifies his sense that he can't speak, right? And how will they don't even listen to me. How is Pharaoh going to listen to me? It's not possible. So, okay, go down if you can, Michaeli. Thank you. So, arel sfatayim. So, what is an orla? What is a foreskin? In the context, I'm not going to read this directly, but in the context of the Torah, a foreskin is basically something that blocks something up, covers it up, blocks it up. So, there's a foreskinned heart and foreskinned ears, and here's foreskinned lips. It's all about block and foreskinned heart, right? You can't feel if you have a foreskinned heart. Okay, go down. We have a similar comment in Midrash Rabbah, Genesis Rabbah. So there are foreskins, Rabbi Akiva says, from, related to the ear, related to the mouth, related to the heart. All of Israel are of uncircumcised of heart. And now you see, so it goes from the metaphorical to the physical, because we also have, of course, the command to circumcise our sons. Foreskin is said with regard to the body, male who's uncircumcised. It was said to him, and this is the quote to Moshe in Genesis, to Abraham in Genesis, walk in my ways and be blameless whole. So that circumcising is both, physical and metaphorical, theological. Okay, so let's go down. And that's how one becomes whole, but that's also how one removes blocks. Okay, so I know All right, I'm going to open things up. Let's see. Let's stop our. We'll get to these texts in a few minutes. Thank you so much. Okay, Nehemiah is very eager to speak, and then Sarah Tova.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
תודה רבה ושבת שלום. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm leaving in a few minutes to listen to one of my linears giving a 1 year talk after 3 years of not speaking. So I have to leave, so therefore I'm speaking now. Wow. We are not ערלי שפתיים, we are ערלי אוזניים. We have on our ears and our mind, we have a veil, and we do unknowingly walking the one who is hiding the golden calf, all of us, or most of the universe now. And the people who run the golden calf are very smart.
Wait, I don't understand what you're saying. Godel Kaf? What are you saying?
Golden calf. The golden calf, C-A-L-F.
Oh, the golden calf. Got it. I thought it was a Hebrew phrase.
Yeah, we are walking for the golden calf.
Oh, that's not.
Unknowingly, the golden calf is running the show, and the golden calf created this which is not virus really, it's a fungus, not fungus, sorry, it's a parasite, is lying to us, the golden calf, and the golden calf pretend to heal us, and the golden calf is doing genocide. Dibarti.
Shamati. Okay, I'm just digesting that for a little while. Thank you. Okay, Sarah Tova.
So I'm thinking of last Parsha where Tzipporah had to circumcise Moshe's son. He somehow didn't circumcise his son, which is always a surprise to me. And to prevent this child's death, Tzipporah actually circumcised his son. And so it's literal, but yet there's something about him that Moshe is still maybe kind of stuck in his Egyptian self, and then isn't able to really be fully available. So I just, it's more a question than an answer.
So interesting, because then the Midianite woman is the one who gets it.
Exactly.
So who knows and who's willing, right? And she seems to know something and to be willing in a way that he's not at that point. And he goes back and forth. In the book of Numbers, he says, "Oh my God, God, why am I carrying this child in my bosom? It's your child. Why am I?" So there's definitely this ambivalence that travels throughout about carrying this burden that he never asked for and he never quite agreed to. Yeah, thank you. I think yeah, that's powerful. So there's the knowing and then there's a willingness. Okay, let me just open things up to people who don't usually speak. Okay, Roberta and Alana.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this movement you started with, Rabbi Dayan, from El Shaddai to Yud He Vav He. And first, as you said, it's clear it's always Yud He Vav He. So we're just talking about what is it that humans can really be in connection to, really be in communication to. And just
what do they recognize? It's not that, I think you're saying this, but in Genesis, Yud He Vav He appears and also El Shaddai appears, right? Intermittently.
Yeah. But this Parsha begins with, I didn't reveal myself to the ancestors as formless, or in I revealed myself in the aspect of you use that word, which I'd love to hear a little more about, in the aspect of El Shaddai. And so there's two completely different senses of fertility and possibility, right? One thing, I mean, Shaddai is, the ultimate fertility possibility. And
fertility possibility.
Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is completely unbounded fertility possibility, emptiness in the Buddhist, the way my teacher Thich Nhat Hanh defines emptiness as the fertile void, which I always think is a great way for me of looking at Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. But I just wanted to connect it to two other things in the story. One is the word, and the idea that the exile is that the exile that we are in today, right now, is from hearing the true meaning and experience of each other. We get caught in the words. In fact, the debate about quote unquote facts and the condemning people because they don't believe in quote unquote facts. It's a denial of something much deeper, which is the human experience. And for me, this is connected to this dance between Shaddai and Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. And that's probably, I don't know if that's clear, but I just want to say one other extremely controversial thing, that I'm also thinking about the physical act of circumcision, which I have very mixed feelings about, that what we are studying always is the depth of what it is that the Torah is really talking about in terms of circumcision, that it's not this physical thing. There's something much deeper. And I'm just wondering why we're still so stuck on just the physical act of it. It's almost like being stuck in Shaddai, in this like limited form. So I know, very controversial.
Okay. Thank you, Roberta. I'm not going to address the circumcision thing because that's a whole other issue and topic. What you're saying is interesting, but I will leave that there. In terms of El Shaddai and Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, I think what happens in the Torah, and I think what happens actually, is that in every situation, a different aspect of God is manifested. Like what aspect of God is needed in whatever situation. So if you think about it, when the Israelites passed through the Red Sea, they called God a man of war, right? That's totally offensive. Man of war. I don't want God to be a man of war. They needed God to be a man of war in that moment. Of course they did, right? They're running away from the Egyptians who are after them. Of course that's what they needed in that moment. So if you think about Breshit, about Genesis, El Shaddai, right? God's trying the impossible project in Genesis is God is creating an Israelite family in the face of barrenness. Complicated. So we need El Shaddai. What do we need in this book? We need Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. We need a different world order for the Israelites. Right? So what God do we need now? That's another question, but we're not going to answer it right now. Okay, I'm going to go to Joe St. George. So we haven't heard from Joe in a while, and then Alana.
Good afternoon. Good morning. You just hit on the nail for me, because whenever I see anything, the entire Torah is always through Genesis 1 and 2, and we serve a creator God that is in the physical. And I don't think that we should minimize the physical, because imagine we can't exist if we don't have eyes, nose, mouth, hands, right? To just be a mind without it. And so for Moses and for all children to this day, we need to experience God in the physical. If he said to them, "Oh, I'll spiritually deliver you from Egypt," they're going to say, "Well, wait a minute, what about the physical freedom," right? So we have to have balance between a God that manifests himself physically and the spiritual. That's all I want.
I hear you, Joe. And in fact, Judaism is a tradition in which our practices are embodied practices, right? They're mitzvot. So I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to call on Lana and then do some more texts. And again, I'm especially encouraging people who don't usually talk in open book today. And hopefully Barbara will get to you and Lori. Okay, Alana.
Hi. So I wanted to follow up on this topic of circumcision, and I've been obsessively writing and thinking about Zipporah all week. But thinking about how in the text we're not told whether it was Moshe or his son who was circumcised. So if it was indeed Moshe who was circumcised and done, and the person who led this ritual was his wife, who was the daughter of the priest of Midian, maybe a priestess herself, that he went through himself this profound ritual of opening to the sacred and to his path, because this happens right before he meets Aharon and continues on the path. So that, but part of what struck me in this passage is that perhaps he's drawing on the power of yielding himself to the sacred and feeling that feeling the tension and the frustration in his lips, that there's something happening, as you pointed out in the Devar last night, that he is speaking, but he's not being listened to, or he feels that he's not being listened to, and that there's this yearning to become the vehicle of the sacred. And even for all of us, like, how much does it depend for us as well that we think we're being listened to feel like the sacred is really coming through us? And what do we need ritually and experientially to know that?
That's such a great question. And, and Sharon and I were talking about this morning, like every leader depends on having a community. Every speaker depends on a listener. And there's that beautiful feminist notion from Neale Morton, who I think was a theologian, 20th century feminist theologian. Thank you, Sharon, for nodding your head, who says that we hear each other into speech. We hear each other into speech. Right? And that's a practice, and that's an essential practice. I know personally, some people can hold forth no matter what. I know personally that if I feel like people aren't listening, I can't speak. I just can't do it. I can't speak. I lose my voice. It's unbelievable. Okay, we're going to do a couple more texts, and then I'm going to go to people. And again, I'm giving priority today to people that we don't usually hear in this Zoom room, this Zoom Beit Midrash. Okay, so, Michaeli, we can have the source sheet again. And feel free, obviously, if you don't get a chance to speak out loud, to drop your voice in the chat. Okay, can you go down a little bit from after this one? I love, we'll see if we can get, okay, so yeah. All right, so we're going to do both of these. Ronnie, can you read Zora Neale Hurston? You up for that? Okay, go up, Michaeli, to the previous text. So this is a wonderful rendition from Zora Neale Hurston's Moses Man on the Mountain. And maybe, Ronnie, you'll say a couple words about the book, about why Moshe feels that he can't speak.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Just 2 words about this novel, which is essentially a long midrash in Black vernacular, where Zora Neale Hurston imagines Moses as a Black man and the Israelites as African Americans. And obviously it's a huge allegory for slavery and exodus in this country. So I can't do it. And that I am what I am ought to know it. It's going to be just about as hard to talk to them Hebrews as it is to Pharaoh. But the promise has been made, so Jethro. Oh, I don't know, Moses. It stands to reason that anybody in slavery would be glad to be free. And when you look at it again, a nation of folks with no particular God would naturally be glad for a God to choose them for his own and then pick out a land to give them. I can help you some. How? On one of those trips down into Egypt, I met up with some of those Hebrews, and I think I could maybe find a sort of headman among them who could help you out some. That would be mighty convenient if you could. Why, I don't talk their language. I don't talk with their thoughts. I don't know the first thing about them, and they know next to nothing about me. I just can't go. How about your promise to the mountain? It wasn't so much a promise as it was a command. I gotta go, but I feel like the job don't belong to me. I never could talk to crowds, and least of all these people that is so strange to me. I'll go down to Egypt, Moses, and bring out a man to help you handle the people until you feel you can manage. His name is Aaron. And what am I going to say to him, Jethro, to get him to work with me? Why can't you tell him the voice mentioned him by name? Tell him whatever you want, Jethro, Moses said, and walked away with his head down. I'm going off to the wilderness to think. I'm a man that has been called.
Yeah, such a great passage. And, you know, I so relate to him feeling like, I just don't have the tools. I just can't do this. I don't know how they think. I don't know how to speak to them. Like, I can't do what's being asked of me. Like, how can I possibly do this? Okay, go down a little bit, Michaela. We have one more text on the page, which I'm going to read. So I love this big picture sort of view of this whole story from Aviva Zornberg, which I wanted to share with you. And it also speaks to the knowing and who knows what. Okay, the people who left Egypt were perhaps unfit for redemption, incapable of hearing God's word in any real fullness. And if you remember at Sinai, they finally hear God's voice and they turn around and say, Moses, we can't listen to God's voice because we're going to die if we hear God's voice, right? Their hopes in leaving the land of terror were shriveled by the cramped conditions of their nurture. They were cramped hopes, Egyptian-shaped hopes, like the patient entering analysis who can only have only a distorted view of the process awaiting them, of the way in which it will expand the underlying structures of experience. The Israelites leave Egypt more like a man flying from something that he dreads than one who sought the thing he loved. Right? So escaping, right? The Israelites escaped. They ran out of town with the Egyptians at their back rather than saying, oh, wow, freedom, the promised land. Wow, we're going there. No, they just left in terror. And like the analysts whose hopes for the patient are radically different from those of the patient themselves, God begins a process with God's people in a stage of arrested development, a process that will lead them into fuller, unimagined life. This is really interesting because that actually explains God's rage and frustration. Like, oh, why can't they see? I'm giving them manna every day. Why do they lose hope? Like, what's going on here? You know, and how do you enter relationship with someone who doesn't really recognize you? However, in this scenario, in which God's hopes and people's hopes are profoundly different, there is a hidden assumption about the arrested, truer self of Israel, the self that harks back to the foundational narratives of Genesis. Both analyst and patient share a hope for the unfolding of that truer self. But such a shared hope is at first almost invisible, only the discordance is visible. Oh, and one more text, final text. As the philosopher Emmanuel Levinas writes, the Hebrew Bible is so suspicious of any rhetoric which never stammers, that it has as its chief prophet a man, Moses, slow of speech and of tongue. Okay, let's leave the source sheet. Okay, so we're going to go 5 minutes late. That's become our practice. So, Jessica, I'm going to call you in the last few minutes. And I'm going to go to Reb Zusha. And everyone, I'm going to ask you to be brief to see if we get a bunch of voices on the table. I know a bunch of you want to speak. Reb Zusha, can you unmute? Are you here?
Yes. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I've done writing on this situation of El Shaddai and Yod He Vav He. That doesn't mean I know anything. That doesn't mean I'm authority. That doesn't mean anything of anything. But the truth that I got from my own personal study was that the El Shaddai part is the personal God. This is the God that takes you from A to B to C in your life, the personal relationship. And this is the intimate or the immanent type of manifestation. But then there's the transient or the transmutable, or that which is away from us, maybe, which is the Yud He and the Vav He. So as important it is for each of us to daven, as important for each of us to study and do mitzvot, we have to also do it within a community. So this kind of, to me, is the difference between the two. And when we see that, then the immanent, the transcendent, all become one in our lives.
Nice, beautiful. Thank you so much. And this reminds me of something that Sharon often says, which is Yud Hey Vav Hey represents every kind of time, like past, present, and future, right? And perhaps there's something that happens in the Exodus narrative and liberation that alters the fundamental nature of time itself. That to go from slavery to freedom, time itself has been transformed. Okay, so Barbara, do you want to be very quick? Did you have something, or you put your hand down?
I put it down. I'll just very quickly say that to me, there's some big connection to faith when you can't hear God, when you can't let God flow through you. You also can't communicate very well because you're not on some level being really authentic. I know for me it happens in music when I'm not connected, it just doesn't get there. And so for Moses, and then for the rest of us, when we're thinking Yud Hey Vav Hey, when we're asked, when you were talking about it in the beginning today, it's that faith, or whatever word you want to use, that lets God in, and then the change begins to happen.
Thank you. Beautiful. Okay, Lori, Alana, really quick, and then we're going to go to Jessica.
Thank you, Rabbi Diane. What you said last night about shame, I mean, it's amazing to listen to you as a body psychoanalyst. You are like feeding my soul, because the shame, the fear, the humiliation, the loneliness that's trapped in the body needs a human loving presence that's connected to Yud Hey Vav Hey, because it's that presence that allows the patient and the client to feel safe, to come out of the shame and birth the divine within them, so that the body is the vessel for everything. I couldn't see you, touch you, talk to you, hear you, couldn't even think without the body. So really, climate change is the return to breath and embodied being. But I need to find love so that all the intense emotions I don't identify with. My slavery is to my character structure. My slavery is to my habit patterns, and it's terrifying to let them go. But when you love me without shame, I can let them go.
Thank you, Lori. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just racing through, but that was really powerful.
And you and I had that exchange with each other at one time.
We did.
Thank you.
Alana.
Wow. All of this to me speaks to me about, I grew up in a workman's circle and sort of in the lefty Jewish upbringing where there was not, atheist, no connection with God. And yet the story that was the redemption story was the story of slavery and the story of the modern civil rights movement in this country. And so I really wanted to lift up what Joe put in the chat around, if the Israelites are Black, are we of kin? And I think that story of like, for me, what I grew up with, the narrative of the story and the obligation to be involved in the struggle of people who are not in the same position as me is like moral obligation, because it's my story. And so to connect with the story through this, and then what Devora put in earlier of like, to believe in miracles in the face of so many things that tell you not to believe in it, or so many setbacks.
Yeah.
And that balance between doing the work and trying to stop a train wreck and trying to make change, and also believing, and also knowing that you might not know what the outcome is. That I love that idea of God as like possibilities, and that our mind often goes to the one that we don't want, the negative, because we know it, the thing that we're missing or the thing, as opposed to all the vast different outcomes there.
Yeah, I think the unknowing, and Sharon and I were studying this morning or talking about it, unknowing, not knowing is so important right now. It's just so important to say, I can only do what I can do, and I don't know the outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
I can only do what I can do. And what was the first comment was so moving to me in this moment of feeling so abandoned by leaders. And so it would be helpful if there was more of, this is what we know, and so this is what we're doing. But we don't know a lot more than we know probably right now. And so we're going to trust each other.
Yeah. I'm going to thank you. I'm going to go to Jessica because I know she prepared something beautiful. Okay.
I don't know if it's beautiful, and thanks for taking extra time, everyone, to listen. I just riffed on the teaching, Rabbi Diane, but from Miriam's point of view. So I'm going to try to race through this to.
No, don't race. It's okay. We're good. We're good.
Does asking for help make your tongue heavy and your lips thick? When you are strong-minded and independent like me, words flow easily and actions soldier on. But humility is a different story. The first time my speech faltered was the first time I asked for help. I didn't ask outright. I asked sideways. I was a teenager. I'm standing at the river. It is the worst day of my life. My baby brother floats alone in a basket. I watch the tiny vessel I built with reeds bump from rock to rock, shore to shore. A flourish of rapid water makes small waves. He cries. Twice I have waded in, grabbed the bundle, held him, kissed his cheeks. But here on shore, he faces certain death, and there on the water, he has a chance. So I put him back in the river twice. I follow the little basket. The water calms. He sleeps. Suddenly, he comes to a stop in a pool that has gathered with walls of stone, a dam. I hadn't predicted dams. I watch as a beautiful woman comes to the edge of the river in rich red velvet robes. She's coming to bathe. We are near the Pharaoh's palace. This must be his daughter. He sees the baby. I hold my breath. She picks him up. He cries. My stomach clamps. I watch as she holds him, rocks him. Something about her kindness allows me to approach. She says, "Look, I have found a Hebrew child." I ask her, what? I can't find the words. My mouth is filled with river rocks. I'm a girl of impeded lips. I reach across my weighted mouth and spit out, what will you do with him? How do you know it's a him, she asks. And then she looks under my mother's wedding scarf and sees, yes, a boy. I will rescue him, she says. I will defy my father, adopt him as my own. I will call him Moses because I drew him out of the water. My heart feels so full. Here comes the ask. It is so important I can barely speak. Shall you what? Asked the Pharaoh's daughter. Shall I bring you a Hebrew woman to nurse him? She looks at me hard. She nods. And then with my heart thrust forward, even though hate and fear try to stop me, knees shaking under my slave robes, I strut into the grand halls of Pharaoh's palace and offer my mother up as nursemaid for the baby. I watch as he gobbles eagerly at his own mother's breast, and Yocheved wipes the tears away with her long black hair. I see the Pharaoh's daughter take up the baby then and kiss his face, and I know this enemy of mine will forever be my friend. Admitting the need for help taught me to be humble. Asking for help taught me faith. My brother's tongue was often heavy. He grew up with a stutter. I watched, I listened. When he was grown, he became the prophet he was born to be, the first man God chose to tell her true name. He had one foot in each of the cultures that belonged to him, the one he was born into and the one that raised him. He stuttered through 2 languages. The importance of the words terrified him. His speech would not come. He was ashamed. He often asked our brother Aaron to be his smooth-speaking mouthpiece. But here is a story no one knows. We're at the Red Sea. Moses tries to speak to the people. His urgency will not come through his thickened mouth. Brothers, sisters, I stand behind him and whisper, tell them to get into the water. I have one hand on my brother's back. And then he cries, go! He's released from his doubting tongue. Once more a channel for the voice of the divine. He leads the people to freedom as their wet feet part the seas. The men go in first, but the women hang back. They're terrified. They won't get in the water. I try everything, pushing, threatening. I am the sound. My power is loud. Still, they are afraid to get into the water. They're afraid to leave Egypt and the stories of their ancestors. I see my little brother far out in the parted waters. I begin to panic. How do I reach these women? If we don't go now, we will be overtaken and killed. I fall to ground then and let go of my words altogether. I begin to dance. Come, women, I say, with my 2-step, with my rumba, with my foxtrot. Listen to the bells, sister, the drum beat, I say, with my bells and my drum. Place your naked feet firmly in the mud of the sea bottom. I move forward, shaking my booty, shaking my tambourine. The women slowly follow. Arms waving, hips circling, feet stepping, huge walls of water shoot around us. Each step is survival, and all that matters is the dance. Sometimes asking for help must be wordless. Humility is courage. So when your mouth is heavy and your words are stuck, try to use your feet for truth.
Whoa, Jessica. Oh my God. So powerful. And I so love thinking about Miriam as also having impeded speech and finding her language. Wow.
Maybe it ran in the family.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I sure have experienced it.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I'm sorry that I have to move on. This whole session was so rich and the closing so powerful and so on point. But I'm going to turn things over to Asher Chaim for you all to speak amongst yourselves as I prepare for services. Thank you, everybody.